Welcome to Wealth Well Done. Together, we'll cover a wide range of important topics surrounding money and the impact it has on our lives. From the sophisticated and highly valuable planning techniques of the ultra-wealthy to the commonly underutilized biblical teachings. Together, we'll work to improve our relationship with money and our effectiveness in stewarding it well. Here's your host, Eric Scoville.
All right. Welcome to the Wealth Well Done podcast, where we lean into the tactical, practical, and spiritual advice to help you do your wealth well done. This week, we are back again with Sean Henry, founder of FYREBX, and co-host Isaac Schaefer. Sean, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. And so last week we were on with Sean and we were talking about wildfires. We were talking a little bit about the really how they work, how we fight them, what has caused them to scale in the not only the intensity but just the volume that is happening. This is not just a domestic thing. This is worldwide. Here, Sean gave an example of, was it 29 million acres in Australia that had burned?
Yeah.
So anyways, what we want to talk about here a little bit is switching more toward the business side of things. So this is a finance-focused podcast here. So will you help us understand a little bit of the scale of, from a business, from a dollar standpoint, of the fire industry?
So the fire industry is, I don't know the exact number, but it's billions of dollars. From the firefighting, from the land management, logging side, fuels reduction, and then the replacement of homes and infrastructure after a fire, it's billions of dollars.
Right. And I know in 2023, the U.S. Department of Interior and the Forest Service, just in their suppression and preparedness spending, was $4.74 billion. So that's
Amir.
Yeah, that's one of the organizations involved with this so far. Not talking about the insurance costs. I mean, to try to put a number to the insurance costs would be extreme. So, so it's a massive industry here, not just for the what we would think of the people who are out there fighting fires. It's the prep work ahead of time, and therefore equipment such as what you guys have. So I want to spend some time talking a little bit about the design that you have brought to the table here, and kind of a little bit of the inspiration behind that. And I'd like you to introduce listeners to what FYREBX is.
Okay. So FYREBX started back in as an idea back in, let's see, it'd be 2020. And so let me just back up there a little bit. I had a company. It grew very large. We were operating in 4 states, 100 plus employees, and in the construction industry. And I had survived a plane crash, in 2014. And one of my team members from my company, he was hurt severely. So in 2017, I was kind of ready to, after working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the employees and everything, I just said, I'm ready to retire. I'm done. So I got my dream place in Montana on a river that I could fly fish every day. And in 2017, 2018, I sold my company, retired. And if you knew me, you know that I can't sit still. So the word retirement is kind of a funny word. It doesn't describe what I know how to do at all. So I got into building or doing fuels reduction. I could get into a machine and with the masticator on it, and I could go in and clean up a forest. And it was initially my forest, on my property. And I thought, this is really cool. I get to see my work. I get to see something done right then and there, and a lot of pride in that. And it was I was having a good time.
And it's fun just operating heavy machines.
What's that?
And it's just fun operating heavy machines too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So not only did I have one, I bought 2. And so I had both flavors of machines, and I bought a couple masticators, and I'm having a good time. And before I know it, neighbors, a neighbor in Montana might be someone 45 minutes away, and a neighbor 45 minutes away. Hey, your land looks great. Could you come park mine out? Sure. So I go out and park it out, and And then the Forest Service said, hey, we need masticators for fires. And so I got signed up as a contractor. I got a contract with the Forest Service for being a fire contractor, doing fuels reduction, similar to how the dozers cut line. In masticating, we go in and remove the vegetation so there's nothing to burn other than something on the ground floor. So got into doing that. But when I was out in the field, Forest Service showed up and said, hey, where is your firebox? And I asked them, what are you talking about? I'm just a construction guy. I don't know what you're talking about. And they said, well, where's your 300 gallons of water? I don't know. And where's your dozer blade? I don't have one. So suddenly, my one-man show of having a good time with no employees and just on my heavy equipment all day, now I needed to buy a dozer, I needed to buy a lowboy, a semi, employees, water tanks, just to do this thing that I wanted to do by myself. And that's when FYREBX, the inspiration of FYREBX, happened.
And just to be clear, Sean, those things that the foresters came out and said, like, hey, we're all these things, those are requirements, right? That's not
Absolutely.
just like, hey, you should have these things. It's like, hey, if you're going to be on this fire or if you're going to be masticating out here, you need these things.
Yes. So when you're working in the woods, anywhere where there's a fire threat, you are required, whether you're logging, fuels reduction, using a chainsaw, tree trimming, whatever, you're required to have your FYREBX tools, which is typically a shovel, a McLeod, a Pulaski, a 5-gallon water backpack, fire extinguisher. There's a couple other things in there, and then on top of that, if you have mechanized equipment, you have a dozer blade, so you can cut a line around the fire if you start one, and then you got to have that 300 gallons of water, which is typically a trailer. It's called a water buffalo or a water trailer, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I'm responsible for starting a fire up this canyon on this property up in Montana, and this fire goes to 40,000 acres, something I started, I wanted to make darn sure that my 300 gallons of water would be there to take care of it. But if I'm up here masticating up in the high country or up in this ridge or whatever, I can't get a trailer there. I can't get a truck there. I can't get a truck with a trailer there. So, the thought is, well, you could have 1,000 feet of line of hose lay or 2,000 feet of hose lay. Okay, so by the time I start a fire, get down to the trailer, get my hose lay, fire it up, and oh, by the way, my 4-stroke engine won't start because it's had this garbage fuel that we have today. It's been sitting in there for a few months. Suddenly, this little spark that I did, with the masticator, it's turning into a major event. So I thought there's got to be something better. So I looked online. Is there something better out there? And I'm looking online for any kind of water that would fit on my skid steer, my track loader, and I couldn't find anything. And it just hit me. It was like this download. It was just boom, and it like grabbed me, and it wouldn't leave me. And it was this presence of God. It was just this rush of idea. And I got home and I got on the computer. I know how to do 3D CAD, and I started designing. And I designed the very first one, and I just became obsessed with it. It was just like God was just speaking and all these. And I designed this thing, and I spent over 2,000 hours designing this. And what's amazing is I kept thinking I had to improve. And when at the end of the 2,000 hours, I ended up going back to the original design that God gave me when I very first came up with the idea.
So it's like when he speaks, we should listen.
Absolutely. And I spent most of my life
was
not
correct.
You know what? And part of my story is I spent a lot of my life not listening. And I made a lot of bad mistakes, and I caused a lot of damage. So right now, FYREBX has been the greatest thing I've ever been able to be a part of. It's like being in a joint venture with your father.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's where I am today.
That's great. And so, kind of maybe tie that into, one of the things that Eric talked about on the last episode, which is, there's high turnover rates, the fires are larger, the people able to fight the fires is, getting lower and lower, et cetera. And to your point, being able to have that 300 gallons of water up on a fire and be able to meet those regulations. Tell us about the kind of impact that FYREBX that you thought FYREBX could have, and then kind of going into now that you've actually designed it and built it, what's the reception been like? Is this something that the fire industry is actually excited about?
Okay. So I'll start with the Firebox and the intent. The original intent of Firebox was to make anybody that's working in the woods compliant. With this one piece of equipment, a lot of guys already have a track loader on a site with maybe a dozer, or they might have a grappler bucket or something on there that they're using on their logging site or fuels reduction site, running a masticator. So if they could have a Firebox sitting right there, they're fully compliant. That means when the Forest Service or the landowner or whoever's in charge shows up, they can see that, yep, it's certified, it's done, they got everything, they're good to go. So that was the original intent of Firebox. And from that standpoint, I'll just share one story with you. We had a guy that contacted us. Yeah, I've heard about Firebox. Okay, well, and he wanted to know about it, and we told him. He said, "Boy, that's kind of expensive." And I said, "Yes, sir, but it's built very well. We'll take care of you." And he ended up buying one. And it wasn't 3 months later, this guy that complained about having to get one, and why the government making him get this, or not the government, but the local authorities making him get this, and all this stuff. And he called me, and he was breathing really hard. He says, "Sean," and this is kind of a gruff guy, works in the woods, and he says, "I just want you to know something. Firebox saved my butt."
Oh man.
I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Firebox saved my posterior." And I said, "Well, what happened?" And he said, "I was doing a masticating job, and I was down here. It was kind of dry, and I was heading up this hillside, headed towards the mountain, and there was a lot of rock in there, and I hit a rock, and it sparked, and I started a fire." And he said, and it took off. The wind took it, and it was exploding. Called 911, and I remembered I had Firebox, so I unhooked my masticator. I went over, I grabbed the Firebox, hooked it on, and it was so rocky, I could barely get. The fire was moving so fast. And it got to almost 2 acres at this point, and it's about to explode. I mean, 2 acres
That's a
that
big fire.
fast.
Yeah.
And so he literally was able, because the Firebox shoots about 75 to 80 feet from where he was, it's stuck in the rocks. He couldn't get any farther. He was able to spray that 80 feet, and he stopped the head of the fire. He stopped it moving. He was able to go around. Then he climbed out of his machine and stepped on the little flames that was left, and it was all taken care of.
Wow.
So
That's
I
crazy.
asked him, I said, "Well, did it cost too much?" He goes, "I don't care what you charge for these things." And
Price just quadrupled.
yeah, and he said that the fire chief from CAL FIRE showed up, and he had the fire out, and the fire chief said, "That piece of equipment right there saved you from hurting a lot of people."
Crazy. How'd that make you feel?
I almost cried. The emotion comes up just sitting thinking about it. That I went through a tough time and experienced God and His love, and He handed, where I had taken advantage of all the things He'd done for me my whole life, and then here I'm at this place where I'm on my knees, and He hands me Firebox, and He says, "I want to be in a joint venture with you." And then this happens, and this guy saves. It's incredible. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So now, yeah, and I don't even want to move off that point. It does feel like, and both for us and anyone else who's truly trying to partner with the Lord inside their business, it will move you to emotion. When you see the impact and all those things, all the pain and the hardships, and then when you realize, there it was, that's what it was for.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask you how. So you go to trade shows. You're going to a lot of these trade shows now, and you're getting very serious looks from these big institutional buyers here all around the world. Can you talk a little bit about what the reception's been like there?
Yeah, it's been, the first year we came out, people are like, "Oh, that's a cool idea."
That's a cool little toy.
Yeah, and we got we had almost 100 of them out there last year. So there was a lot of people using them that we didn't even realize what was going on out there. And we get to these shows, and we got to a show, one specifically. We were in Reno just recently at the Wildland Urban Interface Conference with fire chiefs from all over the world. There was people that chiefs from Greece, Australia, Cal Fire, California, the Midwest, East Coast, Canada. They were all there. And the funny thing about fire chiefs and people in the fire industry, they're very, very, how do I say this? They have a high opinion of their opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've worked with surgeons before, and that I think that
Yeah,
applies to
kind of the
surgeons
same
as
thing.
well.
But in all fairness, it takes someone like that who's willing to, when most people are running
Yep.
from a fire,
Sure.
it takes a
Yep.
person like that to run to a fire.
Yep,
They're
absolutely.
confident in their ability and their opinion, and they know what to do. So I don't have a problem with it at all. And but what's amazing is I've learned to talk to these guys, and you just sit there and be quiet, and they come up, and literally at this show, I've never had this happen before. We got mobbed by people. I'm talking. We had 5 people representing FYREBX that day. There was people 3-4 layers thick waiting to come in and talk to us. And Matt, my VP, and other people there, people just wanted to walk up and shake my hand, and I'm like, I'm just a I'm just a designer, we're just working here hard, taking care of FYREBX, and these people would walk up, and to have a fire, I specifically had a fire chief from Oklahoma said, he shook my hand and he said, thank you for creating a product that is literally going to change how we do things.
Mhm.
Wow, that's incredible.
And he was serious. I mean, he was dead serious. He was a small volunteer fire department in southern Oklahoma. They just had an accident. They were on that fire that was in Texas. It was moving up and it had just gone into Oklahoma. And he said, we had money set aside to buy a new fire truck. But now that we've seen this, we're going to allocate funds to buy a new FYREBX, a new track loader, and a brush truck to haul it.
That's crazy. Yeah, no pun intended. Well, pun intended, but those guys don't blow smoke. So
No, they don't.
I guarantee you that he wasn't joking.
No, they don't. So we had over and over and over again, we had favor that was just, I couldn't generate the excitement. I couldn't do enough marketing. I couldn't do enough advertising to get the response we were getting. To be in a situation like in a trade show where I'm supposed to be there selling people the concept, it was just the opposite. They're telling me why they need it.
Yeah. That's a good position to be in.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
One interesting thing, and you mentioned, that they were going to use some of their money to buy the skid steer as well, is that FYREBX is universal.
Yes.
And so I just think if someone's looking at this from an investment standpoint or from a utilization standpoint, that it doesn't matter which type of machine you have. If it's yellow or green, doesn't matter.
Yep. We fit on all brands of track loaders.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this,
You'll
sorry,
find
go ahead, Sean.
you'll find in the country that certain regions in the country are very specific to what type of equipment is sold. West Coast might be more Cat. Midwest might be more John Deere. East Coast, John Deere, New Holland, or whichever. So it's kind of funny to see how each region has their favorite.
Right. Will you talk a little bit about the success that it's had in the field? You said
Yes.
you were even on a fire yesterday too.
Yeah, so I'm pretty high and jacked up about this experience yesterday. So as a result of the Reno show, a gentleman approached me. His name is Jess. He owns a company called Firestorm. They're a fire contractor based out of California, Chico, California. Great guy, amazing guy. His dad is really just incredible. His dad started a company called Terra. I'll think of the name here in a second. Terra something. It's a fire contractor, and so what they did is he had approached us, and we talked to him and said, I mentioned to him that, hey, if you ever have a fire, we would love a control burn. We would love to show up and help you. I've got my fire card, I've got my gear, the equipment's all certified. I'd love to just show up with a FYREBX, and you guys use me how you want to use me. And he said, sure, great. And everybody says that, but sure enough, last week he called me. He said, hey, they're doing a fire next week. My guy wants you there. Here's his contact information. So we got all set up. I show up to this event, and this is in a little town called McLeod, California. It's just south of Mount Shasta. It's an old logging town, really cute town. And it's one of the towns that they're afraid we could have another situation where, a fire get going and get in the trees and get a firestorm where it could take out a town like this. So they're really working hard to remove the fuels around it, but still have a nice place. They still want to see trees. You live in the mountains for a reason,
Yeah.
And so you can't just clear cut everything. So being able to go there and remove the fuels is what they've done. And now they're doing these prescribed burns. So this company goes out and they are setting up an entire camp, just like you would a base camp for a fire. You got everybody there. You've got your all your leaders, the guys that you're following. They're having the safety meetings and everything. So I show up at this event. I go through all the safety meetings. And when we're going out to the fire, the guy that was in charge there said, "Hey, my name's Jim." And this was Jess's dad, he's a fire guru of Cal. I mean, he's amazing. This guy's just he has a long history of fighting fire. And he said, "Tell you what, we're going to get this fire going. And when it's kind of under control, we're going to save a little area to burn for you. And we'll have you come in and do a little fire." And I thought, oh, man, like I just went from college to, kindergarten. But hey, God, I don't know what you have planned here, but God, I'm totally open. And if you want me to go back to kindergarten with these guys, that's why you have me here.
A lead pastor can still clean the toilets.
Yep, exactly. And so I did, and it wasn't about 30 minutes into the fire. They had a tree. So just to give you an idea, these are plantations. These are areas where they're growing trees to harvest. And they're beautiful forests around these towns. And they have that ladder fuel growing up in them. And so this is an investment. These trees are an investment. They're very expensive. They're worth a lot of money. And so they want to protect their investment. So they hire these companies come in to first masticate, remove all the fuel, and then they clean up the trees. They remove those limbs that are going down to the ground. They'll clean them up about 10 feet, maybe 8 to 10 feet, and then they'll go in with a masticator and they'll cut the brush about this high, about 18 inches to 2 feet high, and then they light it off. And they'll have a dozer lying around this section that they want to burn, and they'll have the whole team in place. And they've got water trucks, fire trucks, CAL FIRE. They got hot shots. They got everybody there ready to go. They got Type 6 fire trucks with hose reels ready to do their thing. And so they light the fire off, and I'm sitting on the back just being good, just I'll sit here and wait and just be appreciative for the opportunity to be here. And before you know it, the guy sees a tree completely get consumed with fire. And they don't want that to happen because that tree is worth money. They just lost that tree. If it continues to burn, it's going to kill it. And so what happens is these trees, they get disease, they get bugs, and then you'll have sap will trickle down that tree. Well, that flame could catch a sap line, and then that flame will go right up that tree. Before you know it, that entire tree could go into a candle. And actually, if you got a good wind, get the fire in the canopy, and before you know it, you got it out. That fire's out of control. So this tree goes off. Well, they can't reach it with their fire hose from this Type 6 truck. And I've been telling everybody, FYREBX is a Type 6 fire truck that can go anywhere that Type 6 truck can't go. And right then I look at the guy and I said, "Hey, I can go get that tree for you." He said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." And so I literally put my gear on, jumped in the rig, go out there. I'm like, "God, you're amazing. God, you are amazing. You are literally setting up the perfect opportunity to show what FYREBX will do." Like, I was told I was going to play with fire on the ground. No, you're literally putting me on something that's serious. This is awesome. Yeah. And I drive up to it, square up to it. FYREBX goes up, sprays 80 feet in the air, fires out. And these guys are sitting there with their jaws dropped. They're like, "Are you kidding me? We've never seen anything like that." And after that, it was incredible, guys. It was a dream come true. I prayed that God would put me in situations like this, and he answered it. They said, here, take this radio. And so I took the radio, and it was Firebox 1, Firebox 1, we need you here. Firebox 1, we need you there. Firebox 1, we need you there.
Just a kid in the candy store, weren't you?
Dude, it was 6 straight hours of putting out trees that were completely going off. And right in front of the guy, Jim, who is the fire guru, and his team and his leadership are watching this, and they're just going, that thing is incredible. That is incredible. And so Cal Fire was there, and they're going, that's amazing. And here, it's amazing how God even teaches you something about your products when you're in the midst of the fire. Literally, I realized that, okay, this fire is burning in a couple 100 feet off the road, and the tree is candling, but I got a lot of fire between me and that tree. So I was able to go in with the firebox, spray water. While I'm spraying water, the dozer's down. So I'm knocking the fire down, cooling it off. I'm cutting a line straight into there. I get to the fire. I got a nice platform now because I cut it with my dozer. And then I put the fire out on the tree, and I back right out, and it's all done. Everybody's safe, and we save the trees. And here's the manager that's in charge of this stand of trees. And he's looking at me, and he goes, that is absolutely incredible. We literally put out about 30 trees that ignited.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And the big threat was the plot of land next to them was several thousand acres of a big investment group out of New York that owns this. I won't say who it is, but a very large stand of trees that's owned by this group out of New York. They were very threatened by them doing a control burn. So there was a lot of time put in place to make sure this fire doesn't move into their unit. And the funny thing is the thickest part of the vegetation was next to their property. So they haven't done any fuels management. So they got grass, ladder fuel, trees. It's brushy as all. You can't even walk through it. And here we're burning right next to it. But it was amazing. Firebox was right there. And so, towards the end of the day, Jim is like, hey, you just stay right here, or I want you right here. And then before you know it, Firebox 1, we need you over here. It was incredible. And so we loaded up that night. I said, guys, you got me for one day. I got to get back, and we got some other meetings I got to get to, but thank you for the opportunity. And he said, the head guy said, hey, I want to meet you back at camp. I want to discuss something with you. And I said, sure. And so I get back to the camp, we unload. I mean, I'm covered in smoke and dirt, but I'm just happy as can be. And he said, I want to buy one. I said, I was just here to get video for my machine. He goes, no, we need one of these. I got to have this. Now that I've seen how this will protect me, I got to have one. So he ordered one with all the bells and whistles. He wanted everything it comes with. So it was incredible. And on top of that, they asked, and I've been asking God, is there going to be an opportunity to do this certain thing? And I never heard anything. And this guy asked the same question that I've been asking God. He said, hey, would you be willing to put together a fleet of machines with fireboxes and operators where we could just hire you guys for the day to come in and protect us?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just an incredible day. And now I've got more fire contract. We had another one here today from Oregon. They're the biggest fire contractor in the country. They're called FYREBX. They currently own 2 fireboxes. We're now retrofitting them and adding some new features to them. They're going right back out to a fire in Klamath Falls, Oregon, it's Oregon. And they're doing about 1,000-acre burn over there. So they've invited me to come up there and see the firebox in action with what they're doing. And now they want fireboxes for their dozers and all their other equipment. So it's really, when they see the quality of firebox, what we're building today in the T3, which is a 300-gallon unit, and the T5, a 500-gallon unit, there's other 1,000-gallon, 1,500-gallon tanks out there, but they're saying, no, I want a firebox. Mm-hmm. I want a 1,000-gallon firebox. I want a 1,500-gallon firebox. So it's really just amazing to see what's happening.
Well,
that's amazing.
Yeah, we're going to switch gears and talk about other components as well. But I think it's really neat if someone listening to this is interested at all, go online to their website and understand the design of this is so brilliant. And I'm going to give God credit for it, not Sean.
Absolutely.
The way that you can take 300 gallons or 1,000 gallons in a skid steer and actually, raise that up and not tip the whole thing over. So it's incredible to see recommend you go check out the website. And just for the record here, and we'll make sure there's graphics and other stuff playing throughout the video, but FYREBX is FYREBX. So go to FYREBX.com to see more about that. All right, Sean, so switching gears a little bit now, because FYREBX, when we're talking about this from an investment standpoint, you're thinking of the parent company FYREBX, but underneath that we have the FYREBX piece of equipment and a bunch of other attachments as well with that. But then you have other equipment as well. So will you talk just a little bit about LandBox and what that is?
Yeah, so FYREBX, the T3 FYREBX, that platform is 300 gallons of water, has the FYREBX logo on it, fire stickers, all that, geared towards the firefighter or the logger, the person working in the woods. But by simply changing the stickers to LandBox, we now have an entirely greater market, and that is the construction and mining market in the ag industry. I would say, although the fire is very exciting, and we've done very good with the FYREBX, 80% of our sales has been the LandBox now, and that's using the FYREBX technology design with the LandBox name in the construction field. And they're using it for dust control. They're using it for hydroseeding, hydromulching, washing down streets, washing down curbs and gutters, washing off equipment. We just recently heard that they're going to start putting concrete curing products in the new LandBox, and they're going to be using it for the concrete contractors.
Okay.
They're using retardants. They're actually putting it in the LandBox. So we've had really some amazing success in the Omaha area with a company, Kiewit, very large construction company, mining company. These guys are huge.
Yeah, they're huge.
Electrical. They bought the first FYREBX a year and a half ago.
Wow.
And since then, they've continued to buy them. Now we have a dealer in the area, and he just notified us this morning that you guys better hold on, because they're literally about to fill Kiewit with FYREBX in all divisions. And here's the reason why, and this is something I hadn't thought of. In having potable water or portable water on a site, which is very important, the only means of doing it was the same way I was having to deal with it in the fuels management, was the trailer, the water trailer. And they said that the amount of damage and the safety issue of people getting hurt backing these trailers in and using these trailers on these congested construction sites, they said, we don't care if FYREBX costs twice as much. We need that to reduce our risk. And so they have put it to the test for a year, and they're fully convinced. And so now they're using it for all kinds of projects. Also using the water, portable water, for running a wet saw, for cutting asphalt, all these things. So it's been very exciting.
Well, that's a big efficiency thing too, because they already have the track loaders and other things like that on site doing other various jobs.
Exactly.
And so, like, if all you have to do is bring another attachment on site rather than an entire truck and trailer and all your other stuff to have water available, it just makes sense. It makes logical sense, apart from all the additional benefits that you would get from having a FYREBX on site.
And then on top of that, we have two more brands are coming out of that FYREBX design. The next one is the FuelBox, and the FuelBox is a 300 gallon. It's the same shape. There again, it's a different color. It's green for diesel, and it's called the FuelBox. The FuelBox is 300 gallons of diesel it's just a transfer tank. It's for taking the fuel from a fuel truck to the heavy equipment out in the field, whether that's construction, development, fires, back to the fires. These guys have dozers out on the line. They're tracking back at 1.2, 1.3 miles an hour and putting a lot of wear and tear on their undercarriage just to get fuel, because the fuel truck can't get out there. So they can put 300 gallons of diesel in the FuelBox. We can shuttle it right to them, and it uses the same pump, everything. And we take care of it.
How long does it take to put 300 gallons of fuel into a dozer?
So we can actually flow With this setup, we're about 100 gallons a minute, so we can flow about 3 minutes. We can fill up.
That's crazy.
How much money does
that'd
that
be a big dozer. 300
Yeah.
gallons would be like a D10.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, to that point, Sean, I just wanted to ask, just for a understanding of scale, how far on a general, fire, rather than having a giant dozer, but most of the dozers that are, out cutting line, how far does that 300 gallons get you? Does it get you like one dozer, two dozers, as far as refueling them? Just to
Depending
get a
on
sense
the
of scale of how
machine,
important that is.
depending on the machine, depending on the terrain they're fighting, whether they're just kind of cruising all day on hilly stuff versus vertical stuff, and they're really in it full bore, they could get fuel once or twice a day.
Okay. So switching gears now, looking at this from an investment, we understand that an investment into FYREBX also gets you, the IP is in the company here. The different designs, these different products that are coming out are under this umbrella. So Isaac, will you explain to us a little bit about what the investment is here? And as it stands today, we are still raising. By the time this podcast airs, we may or may not be. But will you talk a little bit about what type of money we're trying to bring in, and maybe even a little bit on the scale? I know we're close to terms with some manufacturing as well, and so you just help an investor understand what they'd be getting.
Yeah. So to Eric's point, all the IP for this design and all future designs is technically within the investment, at least at the moment. And FYREBX is currently raising money for $1 million under a safe note with a 20% discount at a $20 million valuation cap. So I know Eric has already talked about what safe notes are, et cetera. So, we don't really have to get into that. So you can go back to Eric's previous episodes to figure out exactly what a safe note is. But, ultimately, one of the things that we look for in an investment, we talked about some of these things several weeks ago when it came to Elysium, was, capital efficiency. And the capital efficiency in this company, you would say, well, this is a manufacturing company. These are low margin sort of products, et cetera. I can promise you these are not low margin products. They're really healthy margin products. And quite frankly, again, based on Sean's testimony, it could be even higher margin products just because there's so much demand for them. So they're high margin products. We're hopefully about ready to sign a third-party manufacturing deal that would tremendously increase our scale as far as how many FYREBXs we could produce.
In case you've heard the banging in the background, that's because behind Sean is the manufacturing that's happening.
So right now, the FYREBX is manufacturing everything in-house, and they're doing an absolutely amazing job. Beautiful, beautiful products, very well built, but that's also really expensive and really hard to scale. And so we've partnered with some absolute industry professionals that are top tier. They manufacture for people like Cat and Deere, et cetera, that really do an amazing job. And so we're really excited about what the future could look like on that scale standpoint. But just going back to some basic investing concepts, obviously you always need to think about risk. You need to think about scale. You need to think about capital efficiency. One of the capital efficiency aspects of this investment we've kind of already touched on is the efficiency of the design. Just by using the exact same design and switching out a couple of things like a couple stickers, or using a few different materials like for the fuel box, because you have to have specific pumps in order to pump fuel. They have to be fuel grade materials. But the exact same design, you're able to break into completely different markets and massively increase the total addressable market with basically almost zero changes in the product itself.
Right.
And so that's the sort of capital efficiency that you're looking for in an investment. The other thing is you need to look for really solid founders, people that have an amazing vision, that know the industries that they're getting into, which Sean obviously does. And honestly, it doesn't hurt. One of the things that we look for is just looking at projects that are absolutely being breathed on. And I don't think that that's something that we can, it's not a financial metric that we can really talk about from an investment standpoint. But when you're really thinking about the people that are involved, what their mission is, and the fact that the Lord is breathing on it, that's just something that personally we have decided to get behind, because there's, we can't resist it. Right. It's just something that we have to do.
Okay. Yeah. And the founders who have the entrepreneurial experience as well. This is not Sean's first time through, as he said.
Yeah.
And the humility, I think, as well with this. So So from that standpoint, we like the founder, we like the company, we like the industries that it's in.
Yep.
We like the capital efficiency. And so as you're thinking about this, and I didn't do the disclaimer earlier, so anything we're talking about here is not meant to be investment advice for you. It's meant to be educational, and we want you to consult your own financial team to figure out if this is right for you. But that being said, these are the type of things that we're looking at when we're trying to decide what type of company we would want to partner with, but also what type of company we would want to invest in. And so this checks our boxes here from that standpoint. From a business plan here, what should an investor understand about the business plan of FYREBX?
Yeah, I think from the business plan of FYREBX itself, obviously, Sean can speak to that as well, but it's, about going out and marketing the FYREBX. Obviously, Sean is doing a great job of that with the website, the social media posts, going to these shows, etc. But ultimately, from a future perspective, Sean has basically set up the company as really a design company. And so that's another aspect of the capital efficiency, where we're not really hoping to take care of all the manufacturing. It's a design and R&D company, so that we can spin up these concepts and either hold them within the company and continue selling them on our own, or at some point it might make sense to sell that version of the IP and collect a royalty. Okay. And we love royalties. We love licensing agreements because they're incredibly capital efficient. And then, of course, there's all the other designs that Sean has been able to produce. So, Sean, do you want to add anything to that?
You did a good job.
Thanks.
All right. Okay. From that standpoint, we'll wrap that up here. But I think anyone listening to this, I hope you are continuing to understand more of private equity, of how it works. Not every private equity opportunity out there is going to succeed. Certainly, anything that we're doing here, anything that you is doing, is has been heavily vetted, and we search through a lot of projects before we find one that we want to partner with. But at the same time, there's still risk. There's risk in all of this, and so you need to understand the risk. You need to find projects that you understand, that you can get behind as well. And so encourage you to continue to explore that, and not just limit your investments to just what you see in the public market. When we talk about the S&P 500, there's so much more to investing. And we talk about this, from the very beginning on the onset of the show, is we want to teach you how the ultra wealthy handle their money. And the ultra wealthy, while they certainly do have money in the stock market, that is not where their wealth is typically created. So investments like this can certainly be that, but they need to fit within your risk tolerance. They need to fit within the liquidity that you have, and so on. So
one more concept there, just an investing concept based on some of the things that you were saying. Position sizing is everything. It's always everything. And so if you're somebody that hasn't invested in private equity before, but you want to dip your toes in, position sizing comes from a number of different aspects. One, how risky the investment is. Two, what your knowledge base is in the investment. Maybe you have a massive background in manufacturing and you know everything about the fire industry, and so you understand that FYREBX could be a really, really good investment. So maybe that means that your position size could be a little bit bigger because you have a little bit of extra knowledge in that space.
Sure.
Or going back to Elysium, maybe you have experience in the biotech industry, or maybe you're a physician or a pain management doctor or what have you. It gives you a little bit of extra knowledge that might make you a little bit more comfortable saying, what, I can position size this a little bit bigger because I understand more of the risks. But the more risks there are, or the more risks that you don't understand, that means that if you are going to invest smaller.
Yeah.
Position size properly.
Yeah, smaller for your portfolio.
Yeah.
Okay. If someone wants to invest in FYREBX, how should they get a hold of you?
They should get a hold of me. You can just reach out to me at my email. That's Schaefer, SCHAFER, @apeoplebrand.com. Please, by all means, go to Sean's website, FYREBX.com, FYREBX.com. Sean, what about social media handles? Can you tell people what those are so they can follow you?
They can see us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Everything is under FYREBX, FYREBX. And there's a lot of stuff out there.
Awesome.
Well, I pray that you continue to see the Lord's favor in what He's doing, and that you continue to humbly accept where He's leading you, and just let Him keep guiding you, because it's incredible so far. And thank you for letting us be a part of that. Thank you for being a guest on the show, Sean.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Sean.
Have a
Take
good week,
care.
everyone.
Thank you again for listening to Wealth Well Done. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player, and together we'll continue to improve our relationship with money and our effectiveness in stewarding it well.